prior to diving into this video, we kindly invite you to like and subscribe to our channel. Let us now immerse ourselves in the narrative. The morning sun poured through the delicate curtains, enveloping our bedroom in a warm, golden embrace. For a brief instant, I thought about letting it go. Yet something, let's call it a gut feeling, compelled me to respond. "Hello," I said, my voice calm yet careful. A man's voice, authoritative and pressing, replied, "Are you Olivia?" "Absolutely. I'm reaching out from St. Vincent's Hospital. Your spouse, Ethan, has been hospitalized due to serious burns sustained in a house fire. Please come down right away." A frigid shiver coursed through my body. I sat up, clutching the phone more firmly. "That's not going to happen," I stated with conviction. "Daniel isn't even around. He departed yesterday for a business trip to Chicago." A moment of quiet lingered before the man spoke once more, his voice now tinged with uncertainty. "Madam, we possess his identification." The man confessed that his name was Ethan. "I insist that you've erred," I cut in, my tone more cutting than it had been. "That isn't my husband." Before he had the chance to say anything else, I hung up. Before I could even wrap my head around what had just occurred, my phone rang once more. This time, a name that was familiar to me. My father-in-law. For a brief moment, I paused before responding. "Hi there, Emily?" His voice carried a sense of strain and anxiety. "Did Daniel get in touch with you?" I let out a slow breath. "Absolutely not," I replied, selecting my words with precision. A moment of stillness. "He hasn't called me either," he murmured, as if lost in thought. "Perhaps he's simply occupied," I suggested, pretending to be nonchalant. "You understand his nature." Yet I was aware. I was fully aware of Daniel's location. Following a short conversation, we concluded the call. I set my phone down on the table, gazing at it for a while before exhaling slowly and steadily. A smirk tugged at the corners of my lips. I got up, made my way to the kitchen, and filled a cup with coffee. As I lifted my cup for that initial sip, my phone vibrated once more. A well-known name appeared on the screen. Sophie, the spouse of Daniel's superior. Lucas, the man with whom my husband had been having an affair for the last 3 months. I allowed the phone to ring several times before picking it up. "Hi there." The line was quiet. Then, in a voice steady, nearly playful, Sophie spoke. "The bird has been prepared for cooking." A measured, thoughtful smile crept at the edges of my mouth, and then silence fell. The moment Sophie entered my office without warning, I sensed that something was amiss. Just as I was engrossed in my work, she entered the room, wearing a stylish black coat, her auburn hair neatly tied back in a ponytail. She possessed a disquieting serenity, a tranquility that made men uneasy. She took a seat across from me without waiting for an invitation and set a folder down on my desk. "You really ought to take a look at this," she remarked, her tone casual and slightly indifferent. I paused before extending my hand toward it. The instant I opened it, a knot formed in my stomach. Messages sent via text, a multitude of them. My husband's words, overly sweet, brimming with promises, confessions, and longing. Next, the voice recordings arrived. I hit play. "I'm eagerly looking forward to experiencing your presence once more, Nathan." I tightened my jaw. I tightened my grip on the folder. Sophie reclined, her gaze fixed on me with keen interest. "Continue onward." I did. Following that came the videos, grainy yet sufficiently clear. My husband, ensnared in unfamiliar sheets, with a man who wasn't me. I shut the folder, letting out a breath through my nose. My heart raced, but I wouldn't allow her to notice. Sophie tilted her head, observing me intently. She softly murmured, crossing one leg over the other, "What are you going to do?" I gazed at her in that moment, truly gazed at her. Sophia, the sole offspring of Caleb, a name that resonated in the shadowy realms of society, a figure whose mere reputation could instill fear in the hearts of many. I ought to have anticipated her next words. "I don't care if you decide to end your marriage with him," she continued. "Your forgiveness for him doesn't matter to me. That's your concern." She leaned in, her eyes sparkling with intrigue. "What I'm curious about is whether you wish for him to pass away swiftly." Her smile was slow and intentional. Or is it your desire for him to endure pain? An oppressive quiet hung in the air between us. My mouth was parched. At last, I leaned in, reflecting her stance. My voice emerged calm and deliberate. I wanted him to face the consequences of his actions. Sophie's smile grew brighter, as if I had provided her with the perfect response she had been longing for. She stood, adjusting the front of her coat with a delicate touch. "All right," she remarked, glancing at the door. Without uttering another word, she turned and walked away. Over the course of the next 2 weeks, Sophie and I found ourselves in tranquil spots, softly lit eateries, hidden park benches, and even, on one occasion, nestled in the back seat of a darkened car. Every time she arrived with new information, and every time she made it clear that this could end in just a few minutes if I chose to. However, that would be overly simplistic. One evening, she reflected while enjoying a glass of wine in a secluded booth at a stylish lounge. "And overly apparent." I nodded, feigning interest in my drink. Yet, my thoughts wandered to another place. Sophie was systematic, unyielding. However, she was not reckless. "I must ensure that your son is not burdened by this," she continued. "A heartbreaking incident is always preferable to a controversy." She twirled the wine in her glass, observing the rich crimson liquid cling to the sides. After a brief silence, she continued, "I wanted children, you know." Her voice had mellowed, shedding its typical edge. "Nathan and I made an effort, but he's not producing any results." I raised my head at that, taken aback by the intense feeling in her voice. "He was reluctant to undergo the test," she continued, her jaw clenching. "Continued to find reasons, steering clear of the topic. Yet I was aware, and it didn't matter to me. I adored him regardless." She let out a breath, then shifted her eyes toward me. "And he discarded everything for your husband." Her fingers clenched into a fist on the table. I came to understand that despite her ruthless nature, Sophie wasn't merely driven by a desire for revenge. She felt utterly shattered. I remained silent for a moment. She reached into her bag, retrieved another folder, and smoothly slid it across the table. "This is something you have to check out." I paused before lifting the lid. Within lay records, texts, emails, receipts, and something even more troubling. My stomach churned as I went through the details. Daniel's family was aware. The affair had been known to them for months. They had shielded him. I deceived him. Whenever he mentioned being on a business trip, either his mother or father would confirm his account. His sister had even taken care of the kids for me so he could enjoy weekends with Nathan. I clutched the table's edge, my fingertips pressing into the grain of the wood. Sophie stated plainly, observing my expression. Once more and yet again, even when they were aware of the consequences it would have on you. I tightened my jaw, exhaling slowly and deliberately. The betrayal cut deeper than I ever imagined. It wasn't solely Daniel. It was every single one of them. At this point, I was really angry. I lingered in my car outside the hospital, gazing at the structure while raindrops trickled down my windshield. The entrance to the emergency room shimmered beneath the faint glow of the streetlights. Nurses and patients rushed past in a haze behind the glass doors. Somewhere deep down, the man I once called my husband was lying in a hospital bed, burned and injured, completely oblivious to what lay ahead. I could just stroll in at this moment. I might act as the concerned spouse, let some tears fall, and grasp his hand as he battled for his survival. However, that wasn't the reason for my presence. I took out my phone and called Sophie. She picked up on the second ring. "You're out there, right?" she remarked, her tone laced with a sly grin. I let out a breath, my hands tightening around the steering wheel. "Share all the details with me." She hesitated for a moment before she began to speak. "He was within the confines of the house when it occurred. The flames raced quickly, yet he was able to escape." "Hardly." I closed my eyes for just a fleeting instant. "What about Nathan?" I inquired. Quietude. My stomach churned. "Sophie." A gentle inhale, then her voice more gentle than it had been. "He didn't succeed?" I gulped. My hands shook ever so slightly as I placed them in my lap. Lucas, the hidden love of Daniel and the husband of Sophie, had vanished. A part of me ought to have experienced relief. Or conclusion. Yet what I experienced was an odd, vacant void. He wasn't meant to be there? Sophie whispered softly. Daniel was meant to be by himself. I blinked awake, my gaze fixed on the hospital doors once more. What was the cause of the fire? I inquired. A moment of stillness. Finally, Sophie said, faulty wiring. The report will state that. So what does the truth reveal? Sophie let out a breath, and I could nearly sense the joy in her tone. Text, the truth, she remarked, suggests that occasionally sometimes life brings its own reckoning, with a little push from fate. I held the phone firmly, my heartbeat calm. I wished for Daniel to experience pain. Now I faced the choice of whether it was sufficient. When Sophie revealed the evidence of Daniel's treachery, along with the disloyalty of his whole family, I remained composed. I remained silent. I simply sat there, my thoughts racing uncontrollably. It had evolved beyond merely being an affair. Everyone had a role in misleading me. His guardians, her sibling, his co-workers, every person who smiled at me, shared a meal at our home, or sent birthday wishes, all while being aware of what Daniel was up to. Sophie observed me intently. Share your thoughts with me. I reclined, crossing my arms. I'm contemplating, I mentioned gradually, that I don't merely wish for him to endure pain. I faced her, my tone steady and resolute. I hoped he would understand what it meant to lose everything he once took for granted. A gentle smile blossomed on Sophie's lips. All right, let's dive in. Our initial action was to tarnish Daniel's reputation. Sophie possessed influential connections. After making a handful of calls, it didn't take long for rumors to begin circulating throughout Daniel's company. Allegations, inquiries regarding absent finances. Certainly, Daniel had never truly taken any money. However, when you introduce sufficient uncertainty in the appropriate areas, the fabric of reality begins to shift. Just a week later, he found himself suspended from his role, awaiting the outcome of an internal investigation. Next, we removed his safety net. His parents had consistently been his greatest champions. They had rescued him from every blunder, shielded him from every falsehood. Sophie and I ensured they faced their own challenges. A handful of strategically timed whispers regarding Mason's financial activities, coupled with some subtle inquiries into their accounts, and before long, they found themselves preoccupied with their own chaos, leaving Daniel's situation unattended. One by one, we unraveled the threads of his existence, until there was nothing left to bind him. And then the flames erupted. I finally entered, the pungent aroma of antiseptic engulfing my senses. Daniel lay in the hospital bed, his face obscured by bandages, his right arm encased in thick gauze. He appeared diminished, frilier than I had ever witnessed before. His eyes slowly opened, filled with confusion. Then, upon seeing me, a gradual, sorrowful smile emerged. Emily? He spoke in a rough voice. I gazed at him, my face betraying nothing. He reached out for my hand, but I withdrew. His smile wavered. How are you doing? He inquired, feebly. I honestly didn't expect to see you here. I inclined my head. What would stop me? Daniel gulped, fighting to prop himself up. He grimaced, his breath coming in quick, shallow gasps. I intended to share the truth with you. I gazed at him for what felt like an eternity. Then I leaned in a bit, softening my tone. The reality? I repeated. He nodded, his eyes filled with desperation. I was considering ending it all. Emily, I promise. I intended to return to you. I found myself entangled in a situation beyond my control. A wry smile played at the corners of my mouth. I murmured, liar. Daniel's complexion drained of color. I rose to my feet, adjusting my coat with care. You should rest, I said, my voice calm and even. Just as I was about to walk away, I leaned in for one final moment. You've lost it all, Daniel, I whispered. What do you do for a living? How's your family doing? Your partner? His breath caught. His eyes grew large. I stood up straight, fixing my purse. What's the most exciting aspect? I added, a smirk curling my lips. You have no idea how. With that, I stepped out of the room, leaving Ethan amidst the chaos he had created. I emerged from the hospital and into the brisk night air. My breath is steady. My heart remains unwavering. The rain gently tapped on the pavement, while the quiet murmur of cars glided by, breaking the stillness enveloping me. Daniel existed, yet he was shattered. And yet, a part of me still sensed that something was left incomplete. I dug into my pocket and retrieved my phone. There's a message from Sophie waiting for you. Sophie, he is aware. He's assembling the puzzle. I let out a slow breath, gripping my phone tighter. Daniel may have lacked strength, but he certainly wasn't foolish. What if he started to wonder if his downfall was more than mere bad luck? Finally, there was one more task to complete. I called Sophie. Is that you, Emily? She responded in no time at all. How did it turn out? He's acting suspicious, I mentioned. He'll catch on quickly. A moment of silence lingered. Then Sophie's voice became gentler. Then we complete it, she whispered. A gradual smile crept onto my lips. Indeed, I affirmed, we certainly do. Daniel's family assembled in the lawyer's office. Their expressions weary. Their sorrow mingled with an undercurrent of fear and confusion. Mason sat rigidly in his chair, his wife grasping a tissue next to him. Emily, Daniel's sister, kept stealing glances at her phone, as though she were anticipating a way out. And then there was me, the widow in all but title. Daniel sat opposite me, his burns mending. Yet his pride remained singed beyond mending. He avoided making eye contact with me. Excellent. The attorney cleared his throat. As everyone is aware, Lucas possessed a considerable estate. Upon his passing, his assets were to be allocated as specified. The atmosphere in the room was thick with tension. Mason fidgeted restlessly. Absolutely, he replied, managing a smile. Nathan often expressed his desire to make sure his family was well cared for. The attorney cast a quick look at his notes. He mentioned that there has been a change. All fell silent and Daniel's head shot up. What do you mean? The attorney repositioned his spectacles. Nathan updated his will only 3 months back. He bequeathed all his possessions, including his properties, accounts, and business shares, to his wife, Sophia. The room burst into chaos. Mason sprang to his feet. That's absurd. Nathan understood that the business was a cherished family possession. He definitely wouldn't do that. The attorney maintained composure. Everything is in order, officially documented and verified. Sophie, who had remained quiet until this moment, finally broke her silence. Her voice flowed effortlessly, with a calm precision. Nathan was determined to protect his money from falling into the wrong hands. She remarked, casting a sidelong look at Daniel. He made that very clear. Daniel's face lost all its color. I observed him intently, anticipating the moment it would register. He had not only lost his lover, but now he was also stripped of any financial security he might have once possessed. His parents were unable to assist him. His career had come to an end. He possessed nothing but me. At least that was his belief. Daniel lingered in our almost vacant home, fixated on the documents laid out before him. Are you really going to leave me? His voice was raspy, almost just a murmur. I inclined my head. It seems you're taken aback. His hands shook slightly as he extended them toward the document. Emily, I kindly ask you, following all that we've experienced together. I chuckled, the sound tinged with bitterness. All that we've experienced together? I repeated. Are you referring to your deceit, your infidelity, your family turning against me? He gulped nervously. I understand I've erred, yet my love for you remains strong. An intense, frigid stillness enveloped the distance separating us. I leaned in closer, propping my elbows on the table. No, I said softly. You really don't. Daniel's jaw tightened. You cherished my safety. I interrupted him. I stood by you as your faithful, devoted partner while you indulged in your pastimes. You cherished the certainty that I would always be by your side, regardless of your actions. I slid the papers across the table to him. Is that Emily? I smiled with an icy demeanor. She has left. He paused. In that moment, Ethan felt a profound sense of disorientation, as if he had never before encountered such a depth of confusion. I rose to my feet, clutching my coat. Sign them, I instructed, my tone steady. Or perhaps not. It's not important. Regardless, I've had enough of you. With that, I stepped out of the house for the final time. The sun dipped below the city skyline as I tapped my glass against Sophie's. To new beginnings, she remarked with a sly smile. I savored a sip of my wine, experiencing a sense of lightness I hadn't felt in years. Daniel completed the paperwork. His family was now in the open. What about me? At last, I was liberated. Sophie reclined in her chair, observing me intently. Do you have any regrets about it? I paused to consider it for a moment. All that we accomplished, each step we took. The blaze had ignited the flame. However, the true devastation occurred later. Slowly, the truth unraveled, and those who betrayed us faced their own consequences. And now they found themselves amidst the remnants. I grinned. No, I said gently, I have no regrets whatsoever. As I lifted my glass to my lips, a sense of anticipation washed over me. I realized this was merely the start of something extraordinary.